So if you've been feeling kind of unmotivated lately, I want you to know this isn't going to be another one of those talks about just trying harder. Because the truth is, your motivation didn't just up and disappear. Something changed. And once you see what it is, I think the way you look at effort, discipline, and even your own energy, well, it's all going to shift.
Let's just start right here with a simple question. Does it just feel harder to get motivated than it used to? Like mustering up the energy to get things done is just a bigger lift than it was a few years ago? If you're nodding along, you are definitely not alone. And I want to be really clear, this is not some personal failing. We're going to unpack exactly what's really going on.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to bust a huge myth about what motivation even is. Because it turns out, the way most of us think about it, it's just plain wrong.
You know how we talk about motivation? It's almost always like it's a fuel tank, right? Like some people just have more of it, and you either wake up full or you wake up empty. But that's the myth. The reality is, motivation has never worked that way. It's not something you have. It's a response system.
Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. Motivation is a response. It's how your brain literally reacts to the world around you. It's a constant subconscious calculation asking, hey, is doing this thing actually worth the energy? And this is so important because in the last decade or so, the environment that our brains are responding to has changed completely, even if we didn't really notice it happening day by day.
And that brings us to the real heart of the issue here. You know that old advice, just push through it? Maybe that worked in a quieter world, but our world isn't quiet anymore, is it? It's a world of constant, relentless noise.
I mean, just think about your average morning. Your brain gets hit with more stimulation before you've even had coffee than people used to get in a whole week. You've got the constant buzz of notifications, the infinite scroll of content just waiting on your phone, these little instant rewards that are just a tap away. Our entire environment is just saturated with these easy, high dopamine hits.
And this gets to the very core of the problem. See, your brain's motivation system, it runs on contrast. It needs to feel like the reward is actually worth the effort. But what happens when easy, feel-good rewards are everywhere? Well, the value of anything that takes real work just plummets. The effort starts to feel way too big for a reward that seems kind of small in comparison. So subconsciously, your brain is asking itself this question all day long. Why would I work super hard for a reward that feels less satisfying than something I can get right now with almost no effort? And here's the thing. Your brain isn't being lazy. It's actually trying to be efficient. It sees the path of least resistance to a reward, and it stalls on the harder stuff.
Now, this is the point where a lot of us just start blaming ourselves, right? We think, I must have lost my drive, or what's wrong with me? But the problem isn't actually internal. It has a name, and it perfectly captures this modern struggle we're all in.
The real problem is something called reward inflation. It works just like economic inflation. When there's too much money, its value goes down. Well, when there's a constant flood of easy stimulation, the value of rewards that come from real, genuine effort, it gets totally devalued.
So if you take one thing away from this, please let it be this. It is not laziness. Your brain hasn't forgotten how to be motivated. It's just overloaded. It's overwhelmed by all these low-effort rewards that are competing for its attention. So it stalls, not because it's weak, but honestly because it's just confused.
And this leads to this really important idea called context-dependent motivation. Basically, what feels like a really deep personal flaw, that feeling of something must be wrong with me, is usually just a mismatch. A mismatch between how our brains are wired to work and the crazy world we've built around them. If you change the context, you change the motivation. It's that simple.
Okay, so if the problem is the environment, then what's the solution? This is where we get to the reframe that most of us just never get to hear. And it's not about forcing yourself to do more or finding some secret willpower hack. It's about creating the right conditions for your natural motivation to just come back.
So here's the crucial shift. You don't need more motivation. Trying to force more willpower into your life right now is like trying to have a serious conversation during a rock concert. The answer isn't to shout louder. The answer is to turn down the noise. You need fewer competing rewards. You have to create some quiet so the things that really matter can finally be heard again.
And once you really see this, I think everything starts to change. You realize that if motivation feels harder these days, it's not because you broke. It's because the world changed. And look, that isn't an excuse. It's the first real step. You can stop fighting yourself, stop fighting your own biology, and instead you can start working with it.
You can give your brain the contrast it's been craving so it can see, once again, that your effort is absolutely worthwhile.